Hey everybody, Brett Tadlock here, TN Artist. I want to thank you for joining me over here on my channel. So this is the latest lesson that's gone up for my patrons over on Patreon, but I wanted to kind of give you a quick overview of it and discuss some of the different things. So as you can see, I'm using Rebelle 5 here and using its watercolor engine to paint a watercolor painting. I have been wanting to do a watercolor for a while, and whereas I normally would use ArtRage to create a watercolor or a digital painting, I really like Rebelle's watercolor engine. You just can't beat it. You can get a similar effect in ArtRage using my watercolor brushes that you can get over on Gumroad. But in here I wanted to be able to paint this turtle completely and go over how to do it and show everybody how to do it. But as you can see, as it's going through here, the watercolor engine just gives you fantastic results and gets you that nice flowing, blooming of everything. So some of the things I'm discussing here as I'm painting it and going through it is thinking about how to use the tilt on here to make the water flow, how to use a masking layer to create a mask so that you can keep the outlines and have the paint flow around the masking and keep a bit of pooling of the watercolor as well. And then once I've done that, it's really kind of working on some of the atmospheric perspective and talking about how to layer different textures from the watercolor so that you're able to get just something kind of interesting to look at. Now, you can use stencils in Rebelle just the same as you can in ArtRage, but I didn't want to do that here. I really wanted to get that natural blooming and just those effects. I'm trying to push myself more in that area for playing around with the different textures and layering them and building them and doing so. And so that's what I was doing here, was really trying to work on that and play around with it, and then showing some different ways you can get some different effects by letting the water play out, by masking off areas and letting it kind of fill and flow in the different ways. Also talk about how to use the true pigment, which is what I have this setting on. So an interesting fact with Rebelle is that when you put it on the pigment, you can't use any of the layer effects. So in other words, you can't use multiply or overlay or any of those kind of things. So you actually have to paint it like you're painting a traditional painting. So it's an interesting thing. Now there is one way to kind of cheat, if you will, with it, is that you can create a layer copy and then take that layer, turn off the pigment and put it on the top, and then you can actually adjust the layer to be multiplied. I find that to be useful if I'm trying to build up a rich color. I like more rich colors as far as almost jewel tones kind of look versus a soft pastel. And so that's why a lot of times I'll use a blend of the ink pen, because it gives you those deeper, richer colors, and then the watercolor brush as well. So I'll use those two back and forth, and you'll see that if you pay attention as this is kind of zooming by. This is sped up to about 7 times what I did, because the whole lesson is about an hour and a half and of painting this in real time. So played around with the flippers here to get it how I liked it. The back one is actually closer to what I liked than the front one, and then was trying to play around with getting the different look for the shadows and everything else coming in from above. And as I did that, I realized that the layer that I'm working on right now, it was too pastel. It was too soft. It wasn't quite the colors I wanted. So what I did was I created copies of that layer, and as you layer those on top of them, the pigment interacts with the pigment below it to make it darker, almost like doing a multiply layer. Okay, so you can do that, but then you can also grab one of those layers, because I did like 7 different layers on top of each other just to make it look good. But you can grab one of those, put it to the top, and then turn off the pigment, and then you can set it to multiply and reduce the opacity and still get kind of that effect. So it's an interesting way to play around with it, and that's some of the different things I talk about while I'm doing this painting. There are different ways to play around with the layers, to play around with the pausing the diffusion, to really get in there and get different textures and that kind of stuff. And then how to, from there, once you get all those textures and everything laid out, how to then take it and manipulate it so that if you want to keep some of the white lines, because these turtles have those kind of lighter colored lines between their, I don't know, those scales. I don't guess those are scales. Anyway, their skin, their texture, they have the lighter colors there. But sometimes it's too stark the way you have it, so I changed it. But you'll notice here every now and then you'll see it be selected where I'm selecting the layer. And what I'm doing there is I'm deleting it back because I want to keep those stark lines, but then towards the end go back and really push them back into the background some and adjust it and kind of play around with the lighting. So right there you just saw where I selected the layer to do that. And so this is really just a back and forth playing of the textures, building them up and trying to get used to that. I'm hoping to do this more in Rebelle and really play around with it. And because I love watercolor, playing, you know, just painting with it and playing around with it and working with it. I still love, you know, oil and acrylic as well. Started out with acrylic originally in my art career, and so I'll always have kind of a place in my heart for painting around with that digitally or traditionally, and playing around with ArtRage in that digitally or traditionally. So using traditional methods and digital stuff. Anyway, that's what I meant. So I can do that here. I haven't played around as much with the oil and acrylic in Rebelle ArtRage, just because I used ArtRage more. The previous version of Rebelle was fairly resource heavy. I gotta say that 5 is not. It still, you know, it still uses some resources while it's doing the watercolor engine. There's some tips and tricks you can kind of do around that to get it to not be as heavy, especially now that you have the nanopixel export. So one of those is the easiest one, is just work smaller at a lower resolution, lower DPI, and then have the nanopixel expand it. So this was originally an 8 by 10. I used the nanopixel to scale it up to a 16 by 20 print. So now I will have that up on my Society 6 page, or yeah, but anyway, that's just kind of the thing. You see I'm building up the rich colors and the tones and pushing the shadows and everything like that to get that feel for it. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this program, and I'm really wanting to push it more and more to see what I can get done with it, and you know, just keep playing around with it. So if you don't have it, I recommend doing it. I think they still have a demo on their website. You can check it out, and you know, soon hopefully they'll have an affiliate program. They just launched it, and I'm waiting to be hopefully approved for it. So that way, if you want to help support the channel and support what I do, you could use my affiliate link if you're going to get it. If you don't, that's fine too, perfectly fine. If you want to come over to Patreon and support me over there, it's $3 a month for hours and hours of content and lessons for, you know, Procreate, Rebelle, and so learning to use all those different softwares and just different subjects. So doing some more wildlife, doing some landscapes, oceanscapes, and that kind of stuff. So a lot of different variety that I try to do, so that way you can learn a lot of different techniques and a lot of different ways to apply stuff. So kind of rounding towards the end on this one in the home stretch. So if you have questions or comments, leave them below, and I try to answer as many as I can on here. Usually I answer all of them, you know, to get back to people and help them, you know, because some people can't do the $3 a month for all the content, so they may have questions. I still try to help and answer as much as I can. But if you want to help support the channel, feel free to jump over to Patreon and help out over there. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you got a little something out of it, just watching the speed paint and me yabbering on about it. So thanks again for visiting my channel. If you haven't, make sure to like and subscribe. Share the channel. That would be a great way to help, even if you can't afford to do anything else. But make sure to share it with friends, you know, post it up on Twitter, Facebook, and others. You can come join our Facebook group if you want to. That's completely free, and help, you know, just promote everything that we're doing, you know, just organically. That would be a huge help, even if you can't throw any money towards helping support stuff. Again, either way, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you subscribing, and I hope you have a fantastic day. So thanks again for watching.